Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Studs and Scrubs podcast. I am one of your hosts, StuCoffee, and with me, as always, my co-host Nickstrom. Nick, how you been today?
What up? Doing pretty good. How are
Good.
you doing?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. We're just watching a little bit of the March Madness.
Okay, okay.
Basketball, obviously, the men's tournament started. I don't know when it started because there's
Thursday.
so
Well,
many play-in games, right? But
there's a
the real
few
tournament was Thursday.
a few play-in games. I think Tuesday and Wednesday, but yeah, those don't count in my book. The March Madness started yesterday on Thursday.
Right, exactly. So that I kind of forgot to make a bracket, to be honest, because they do one for work, and so last
Mhm.
second I made one. So I don't
Oh,
watch enough
okay.
basketball to be like good at
Yeah,
it. I always go through, and it's like you mostly pick the top seed, and then you need a few upsets. I
yeah.
need a 10-7. I need a whatever it
12
is.
over 5.
Yeah, you need a
Yep.
12/5, which I feel like there was a big 12/5.
There was Clemson lost and another one did. Colorado State beat
Yes,
Memphis, maybe?
that was the one I was thinking of because I'm pretty sure I had Memphis.
Yeah.
No, that
Or
didn't destroy my bracket because I had Memphis losing
losing to Maryland.
to Maryland. Yes, yes, yes. That's what it was. So I'm
Yep.
still okay. I don't have a lot of stuff wrong, but there's no bracket busters because I thought I picked Kansas to lose because I
Mm.
hate Kansas, but I didn't.
Oh.
I only because like I don't really have a super strong opinion. I do actually. I hate them, and it's
Yeah.
only because I went to Iowa State for a little bit.
Ah, yeah.
And so right out of high school, right? I mean, you know this, but I went to Iowa State and then I ended up graduating from Arizona State. But when I was at Iowa State, it was the full college experience, right? You're
Right.
18, 19. I'm in the dorm room. It's the
Yeah.
Big 12. So I'm going to the football games. They were not good, but they beat like Texas that year. I think we beat the Hawkeyes, Iowa Hawkeyes that year
Mm.
in football,
Yeah.
and the team was not good, right? And so it was like I immediately had that, but they were really good at basketball that year,
They
and
were,
I
yes.
think they were number 3 in their bracket or something. So in the nation, they were like 20 or
Yeah.
30. But that was kind of the first time where I was like, I hate Mizzou, I hate Kansas, I hate all these Big 12 teams, and of
Yeah.
course I hate the Hawkeyes because well they're Big 10, but also both my parents went to Iowa State, and I went there too. So it's like,
Yeah.
and my grandpa, we had a lot of Iowa State people, so I hate the Hawkeyes. So anyways, all that to say, when Kansas got beat, I was happy, but also I checked my bracket. I picked them to win. I was like, oh, I thought I called that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Maryland, though, huh? They're gonna maybe go far. I have them going far.
They could. The problem is they will probably run into Florida, who is one of the best teams in the
I got
country.
them winning. I'm down
Yeah.
here. Go get it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that could be a problem. Maryland's best player, well, one of their best players is a freshman, and they don't have a bench. Is kind of the big problem. Their starting five are arguably one of the best starting fives in the country, but beyond that, like they don't have much. Like their starting five scores. I saw it the other day. I don't remember what, but just like 65 or 70% of their points
Wow.
in a game, or maybe they score 60 points a game. They're starting five, and I mean in college basketball, you're scoring what maybe 70 or 80 or something. It's not like the NBA. So if your starting five's getting scoring 65 points and you're only scoring 80, you're getting 15 off the bench. It's not could hurt come tournament time if you got to, especially a weekend. They played today, they won, and then they're going to turn around and play on Sunday. And it kind of showed in the Big Ten tournament because they played Thursday and then Friday, or sorry, they played Friday and then Saturday. So when you have those games kind of like back to back like that, it helps if you have a bench that can give your starters some rest and they don't have to play the whole game back to back days and all that stuff. So
Yeah, because you're really packed in, especially round 1 and 2, right? Are like tight.
Yeah, yeah.
But that is,
So
I couldn't remember, but I had Maryland beating Memphis, but now they have to beat Colorado State. They should win.
they should, but it is one of those things. You get teams like Colorado State or whoever that are like to play upset. They're playing with house money. They got nothing to lose, so they're going to go out there and take more chances and just be a little more aggressive
Right.
because they're not expected to win. So what's it matter? So sometimes that can be dangerous, but yeah, we'll see. I do think Maryland wins their next one, but man, if they play Florida,
Not
I
looking
just
great.
don't know. But a lot of people were saying, I mean, it's funny because I didn't really get to watch a lot of college basketball this year. So when you're filling out a bracket, and I don't even when I do pay attention, it's like I'm not sure what I'm
It's
trying
just
to
a
pay
feel.
attention to or whatever,
It's the feels.
And but of course, there's all these criteria, and it's like, okay, no team that started the season outside of the top whatever has won the tournament. So then it's like, all right, well,
Mm.
what were those teams? Boom. Okay, here's the list. It's going to be one of these teams that wins the national championship. And then they say, well, no team since 2006 has won. Every champion since then has had at least one first round NBA draft pick on their team. And then it like shows you the draft projection for the
Oh, okay.
upcoming NBA draft. And then it's like, okay, well, who has players that are projected to go first round, so then that helps kind of narrow it down and all this stuff. And you're just playing like the odds game, but it's like, okay, so it's Duke or Florida or Tennessee or Auburn or just it's a lot of the Michigan State or even Maryland was on there because Derek Queen is our like stud freshman and he's projected to go in the first round. But it's like, dude,
Wow.
okay, all it takes is for him to get in foul trouble one game. They have no bench. Now they get blown out, or he
Yeah.
gets hurt, or something crazy happens, and so that's what makes it fun. But that's also what makes it frustrating when you're trying to fill out a
Yeah.
bracket.
I feel like foul trouble slash injury happened last year with a big upset. It might have been Auburn. There was a team last year where they had two guys that were super good and they both went out like in 5 minutes from each other. So you're like 10 minutes into the game and they had somebody got like kicked out of the game and then somebody sprained their ankle and left.
Hmm.
And they did some controversial call, the refs. And I don't know anything about basketball
Yeah.
basically at all. But I was watching it and I was joking. I was like, the refs rigged it. The refs have thrown this game. And so I get my phone out. It's brand new to Florida last year. You could bet on
Hmm.
sports. So I bet $10 on the game. I did not realize like how big of a upset. Like they were saying, like the
Oh,
team is so much better. So I'm
yeah.
watching live, and they probably did adjust the odds, but I maybe did it too fast. So I think I bet $10 and won over 100, and
Okay.
so I, of course, wasted it all. But I used that $100 for the whole NHL season and playoffs. I was like, this is free. This is free money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
instead of just taking it out and keeping it, but I love to do, you and I think I've both shared this before, where I do too many. I'll do the
Yeah.
player prop, you build the props,
Hmm.
and I'll build them sometimes that are like not crazy, but the chances of all of them happening. And
Is
it's like
crazy. Yeah.
Connor McDavid scores a goal. Not the
Yeah.
first goal, not a power play, just a goal.
Just a goal.
Pasternak scores a goal. Mitch Marner has one assist.
Yeah.
And then I've got like 15 of them. And it's like, okay, I have bet $1 and I'm gonna win 75,000 if it hits.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm in. This is like a lottery ticket, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
None of them hit. I've never hit any of those. I'm like, the people making the odds probably know what they're doing.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Anyways,
But
all that to say, obviously we had to open a little bit with basketball because it is
that time
drastically
of
by
year,
far the most watched thing this time of year.
yeah.
But as hockey fans, there is some excitement. everyone knows that this time in hockey, you just want the playoffs to start. We're
Hmm.
so close. But I was going to touch on quickly Ovechkin, the great eight, hits 888.
Yep.
Um,
Scored last night.
and then just the wild card race stuff. So I don't know if we wanted to circle anything on Ovechkin. You got a couple games coming up you're going to?
Yeah, so I am getting a little concerned. I won't change my prediction or anything, but a little concerned that maybe he doesn't break it this year now because I think he still needs six to tie, seven to break it, and they have what, like 13 games left or something.
Right. So he needs a goal every
We're
2 games.
talking a goal every other game. That's a lot, and I'm not saying they've already like come out and said that because there was these rumors that he was only going to play home games, right? When he got closer and all these things, and it's like, no, if he's healthy, he's going to play. But at the same time, I think he is because it's going to happen. So, but it might not be until next year. I think he probably right now it's he's going to put team success ahead of his individual accomplishment because that individual accomplishment is going to happen next year regardless.
Regardless.
So if that's scaling back his minutes, I'm not saying that he's not that he's going to sit, but yeah, okay, why have him out there if you're up 3 and he's whatever. It just doesn't. I'm sure he's gearing up. This is the best team you've had in a while in DC, so he probably would obviously love to win another cup, but that's what you're hoping for, right? There's no point in going out here and just having him out there the last 5 minutes of every game trying to break the record and then get banged up or beat up or something happens for the playoffs, and
True.
then well, now you just have ruined that. But so I still not out of the question. I have we're going to the game next Thursday, so I think he's got like 3 games between now and then. So that's not. I mean, if he gets a hat trick. Dude, he's had back to back hat tricks.
Yeah.
Who knows what we're talking in. So
And he's had
either way,
3 hat tricks this year? Two or three?
something crazy, and then several games with a couple of goals.
Yeah.
So either way, it's going to be very crazy to see him play. And if he just scores one goal, like let's say he doesn't score until our game, and then he scores a goal, okay, only him and Wayne Gretzky will have numbers 889.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and even if he doesn't score a goal between now and then, and he doesn't score when we're there, it's fine. We're seeing him as a player that is still second all time. We've seen him before several times, but like, you know, he didn't have that many goals at the time.
Right.
Yes, he was the same player, but now I'm seeing him as and there'll still be some buzz around him, I feel like. 7 is out of the question, but I mean, if he gets within 4, right? So 4 would be still a crazy number to hit in a single game, but it's not impossible.
Not impossible.
So 5 is a tall order. The
Yeah.
number of players that have scored 4 goals versus 5, I feel like is a big
It
difference there.
probably is. Again.
But yeah. So in 7, you're like, okay, well, he's obviously not breaking the thing tonight. But
Right.
if you're within 4, it's a small, but it's still a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
If he's within 3, you're like, oh, dude, a hat trick and he's got it. How
Right.
awesome would that be? So there is some excitement there to do it. And then we also have tickets April 12th when they are in Columbus.
Yeah.
And so that might be looking a little more realistic.
I think
Uh,
that's the pace
it
of the
was at one
season.
point, and I have some friends back home that have tickets to the game before that, and that game was the pace for a little bit, but
Okay.
and so if he doesn't do it on the road at a game I'm at, I hope he does do it at home because I do have some friends and family back home in Maryland that are trying to go or have tickets to go to some of those games. So I think it would be awesome for them to see that.
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, I'll still stick with all my predictions. It doesn't take much for him to get hot, so he can come out and score 5 goals in 2 games.
Yeah.
So, it's not crazy. That's what he did when he came back after he broke his leg.
Right.
Um,
And
I
I
don't know
think
that he scored a goal in the first game back. Maybe he did, but like within the first 5 games, he for sure had a hat trick and a 2 goal game. So
right.
it's like, dude, and you have to think how much it'll be interesting to see. I know it doesn't quite translate, but let's say because I don't know I forget how many games he missed because of his broken leg, but if it takes him that long, and then I can subtract those games, like, well, if he never breaks his leg, let's, move that game up a few,
Yeah.
and then it really is the day that I said he was going to break it because he
Honestly.
didn't get hurt. But because he got hurt, he missed, whatever. Let's just say I forget what the number is, but if he missed 10 games because of
Yeah.
a broken leg, and then it's 10 games past April 4th against the Blackhawks, it's like, well, okay. If he doesn't break his leg,
You called it.
obviously I called it. So it'll be
And
interesting. I think there's going to be a pretty good buzz around the team here. Gretzky's going to be following him around. I saw today that Backstrom is going to start traveling with the team when he gets close.
oh, okay.
So obviously he's assisted on a ton of Ovechkin goals, and they've played together for a long time. And so you're going to have a lot of people that have been with Ovi through this journey, teammates.
Yeah.
Um, Gretzky, obviously, and a lot of other legends of the game, I feel like, that are just going to be there just to witness something that everyone probably thought was unbreakable.
Honestly, it's pretty incredible. And of course, you can talk till you're blue in the face about different eras or about different. Ovechkin missed the season with the lockout and blah blah blah. But what
Yeah.
I just saw the other day was that not only is he almost guaranteed to break it eventually, but if he were to do it this season, who cares really about the year? He is, I think, possibly going to do it in less games played, which is really
Yes.
the real. Because the era
Right.
thing, I don't want to hear it. You can talk the
Yeah.
eras all day long. The goalies now, they're big and they're good. And okay, well, look at Ovechkin's shot compared to Gretzky's shot. It's different
Yeah.
eras. That's not comparable. But the total goals and the total games played is crazy to me. Because if you had somebody that was more like a Gordie Howe, where they're like, yeah, they beat Gretzky's record, but he played 400 games more than Gretzky. No, no, no.
Right.
We're talking the same pace, which is
Yeah.
insanity. Especially
Yes.
because Gretzky had 80 and 90 goal seasons.
Yeah. Gretzky
Ovechkin
was
just,
so dominant. His that is one thing, and it's kind of hard to separate that, especially if you're not really a hockey fan. You're just kind of looking at numbers. But
yeah,
Gretzky's his first 10 years in the league was probably like the most dominant. I mean, that's when he was breaking all the records and all of that stuff. By the
yeah,
time he was in his early 30s, he had already broken Gordie Howe's record. That's like if Babe Ruth, or sorry, if someone um, only plays 10 years and breaks Babe Ruth's record in their 10 years of playing baseball.
right,
Well, for like home runs.
right.
It only takes him 10 years to do it.
Total hits or something
What?
like
Yeah.
what's
Just something crazy.
Mr. 3000 or whatever, you know what I mean? Like the hit
Yeah.
record or something. It's like so crazy. And people sometimes don't know the gaps of like, what does he have, a 92 goal season? Is that the record?
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, dude, that's like, does Bond still have the home run record or no?
Yeah.
70
With an asterisk.
with an asterisk. With what is it,
I
77?
think it's 73.
73.
Yeah.
I know he passed 73 because Mark McGuire hit 72, right? Because I remember when I was a little
I
kid,
think he hit 70.
70. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Because when I was a little kid, they had the
The
um,
record was 62.
yes, and then Sammy Sosa and McGuire because we
That
lived.
home run
Well, you were
chase.
still in Maryland back then, but I lived in Central Illinois, and of course, Cubs
Yeah.
Cardinals. But
Yeah.
we got to walk around the Busch Stadium for a hockey tournament. They do this
Mm.
thing called the. They probably still do it. it was called like the Midwest Games or something they would do,
Mm.
and they did it like it was the Olympics, but it was like you didn't represent your state or anything. It was just a
Okay.
big, gigantic Pee Wee tournament of Illinois, Missouri, Wisconsin, Michigan, all the kind of Midwest. And you got to go on a parade thing they would do, and they bring out the Clydesdales for the Busch, for the Cardinals. And you got to go onto the Busch Stadium and walk
Okay.
the outfield.
Nice.
Well, it was the same year that McGuire broke the record. So they had number 62 or 63, whatever, where it
Yeah.
went over the fence.
Mm.
And they also had number 70 because I think he broke them both at home. And
Okay.
I just remember this because we would line up and the coaches would like pick us up and we would like high five the 70 sign. And it was super cool. But, anyways, I remember that race. And then Bonds, of course, breaks it. But maybe it was even you. Somebody was telling me that Gretzky's goal record in a single year is like next year if Shohei Ohtani goes out there and hits 170 home runs.
Yeah.
It's not like he hits
It's
75.
just crazy.
It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
something insane like that. Like it's not double, I guess, but I don't know who
It's
has the
still
other
hard to
record, right?
compare. Um,
Points, and maybe it's total points because I know that Brett Hall had an insane year also, but
yeah, but I mean, those are so far and few and far between. Um, I mean, because dude, no one even hits like 70 goals, like
okay.
60, and you're crazy. Timu Solani had 76 his rookie year. Brett Hall, I think, scored 87 was his career best, which
Mhm.
no one talks about because it was the same year that Gretzky scored 92.
Right.
So who cares?
So
Okay, great, you scored 87, but it wasn't even a record ever at any point in time.
yeah,
Second most goals in a season ever, and it
and it was
wasn't.
never a record
It,
ever. That is so
yeah,
crazy. And if you think about it like this, when it wasn't the full true dead puck era, but in the like 2010s, I think there was kind of a dead puck era. And I don't know off the top of my head, but I want to say that Jamie Benn won the Art Ross Trophy with 89 points, total points, and he won.
there
Is that
was
accurate?
something where there was, yes, there
Gretzky had
was,
more goals, and Brett Hall maybe had more goals.
yeah, yeah, and
I
I
don't think it was
don't
a short
know.
season. I don't think.
I don't know. For some reason, I was maybe thinking it was, but I can't remember. But I mean,
Because somebody
yes,
won with like 58, and it's like that was a short year.
yeah.
Jamie Benn did it with 87 points in 14-15. That's not a short season, is it?
It might have been.
It doesn't tell me how many
Eh,
games he played. That's annoying.
12, 13
Right.
was, I
Was
think,
the
for
lockout.
sure. But maybe 14, 15 might not have been.
I don't really know how to check games played unless I do a
Okay.
single team, but whatever. Anyways,
Yeah.
now I've derailed
So,
this, but still, it's just Ovechkin on pace to break the record is crazy in the same games played
in the
caught me
same
off
games,
guard
yes, that is,
because I was like, okay, this is not a you just played longer record.
yeah,
Yeah, because like there is some coolness to that in terms of like a Chelios where it's like, okay, there's some merit to like you played that long because you could endure it. You played
yeah,
through injuries, your body's beat up, you took care of yourself, like you could keep up with the speed, even though it's not like
right.
today's speed. When Chelios first entered the league versus what 2010, later than that, he's retiring in
Yeah,
2015, even maybe. Like the game's changed a lot, so there is some longevity accolades, but still, it's like Chelios. Does he have more points than Mike Modano? Question mark.
mm,
Okay, well, he played 28 seasons or something. It's like okay, well,
right.
you
Yeah,
know. But anyways, I just noticed that yesterday. I think that I was like, oh my god! Whenever he scored 888, I saw the games
Yeah,
played, and I was like, whoa, he might beat the record in less games, maybe.
yeah. And even if it's, I mean, it's already close enough that if it takes him whatever 10 more games than Gretzky, dude, who cares? I mean, that's
Oh yeah.
close enough that it's essentially the same number of games.
Yes, and of course everyone is just going to care goal. Like he broke the record.
Yeah,
Only people that nitpick would say like, "Oh, well, how many empty nets did he get or whatever?"
yeah.
And to me, it's like, first of all,
Which
next
is fine
year,
because it's like, you know what? If his rookie year was a whole lockout, there was another half season lockout, 2 months of COVID, he'd be score. He would be at 1,000 goal, a
he'd be over.
thousand regular season goals if he was able to play. We're talking a whole nother, almost 2 full seasons
Right. It would be just
of his prime.
of his prime, which are almost guaranteed 50 goals. Just mathematically looking at what he did, not
Yeah,
theoretical. Just look at his real life numbers.
and he still has next season to go.
Right.
So, so let's say he breaks,
I
or
hope
he
he's good
ends.
enough to break it. Take away all of his empty netters, it's still more.
Yeah.
Just because then it's like shush. Also, side
Well,
note, Wayne Gretzky has the second most empty net goals of all time because he
yeah.
just
So
scored the most goals. Period.
I mean, if you're going to take away his empty netters, then take away Gretzky's empty netters and see where they're at.
Yeah,
But
and then he's only like 20 behind him instead of seven.
yeah,
It's like
but
it's
who
it's
cares?
this close.
It's a goal's a goal. If you got to score an empty netter, you were out there. It's essentially a shorthanded goal.
Yeah.
And if you yeah, it's a shorthanded goal. So if you can get a breakaway shorthanded, okay, good. Your team's great. And if you shoot it from your end and score into the empty net, okay, that's still hard to do too.
Yes.
So I'm not too. I mean, and honestly, it might detract from it like initially, but a year from now, a year after he breaks it, no one's gonna
Mhm.
say, "Well, he broke it on an empty net." Dude, no
Right.
one cares
No one cares. It's
because he's gonna end with more than Gretzky. So it's like, okay, take that one away. Who cares? You take 20 away. He's got Gretzky by 50 goals.
agreed. And I bet you if they did who has the most total goals, who has the most playoff goals, who has the most power play goals, who has the most empty net goals, Gretzky and Ovechkin are both going to be near the top in every category because
Yeah,
they just score the most. And I doubt Ovechkin has the most shorthanded. In fact, I know he doesn't have the most, but
no,
Gretzky probably also. Why would those guys be killing a penalty? That
yeah,
especially Ovechkin doesn't play defense, but Gretzky too. Like in his era, also, it's like why are you going to put a superstar goal scorer?
right,
Except for he was really good on the face-off, I guess. But like you're not going to put him out there every penalty kill. That's just crazy. Gretzky, go block a shot and ruin our whole year. Yeah, no
yeah.
thanks. Exactly. But anyways, had to touch
Anyway,
on it because why not?
enough for right.
And really waiting for the playoffs. The only thing exciting going on in the NHL is his race and the wild card race. And the
Yeah.
wild card race, you can talk about all you want. It is pretty fun. But by the time we are done speaking, they're going to change again. So I figured we'd touch on that. And then the main point of this week we wanted to do was the fantasy playoffs is either about to start or already started, depending on your league. I think most leagues probably start next week because
Could
didn't
be.
we push ours up a week because teams will rest
So
players the last week of the year and it can screw up your fantasy?
yeah, so I'm not sure what the default is for fantasy hockey, but I know fantasy football, obviously you don't play your championship game the very last week of the season because a lot of things are locked up. Guys are resting, getting ready for the
Yeah,
playoffs and
you
all
got
that.
Mahomes and they rest him. Now you just
Right.
lost fantasy.
So the championship game is usually always the week before the last week. And I do think there was one year or maybe several years where that's what we had. We had the championship game be the last week of the regular
I
season.
think so.
And it got to that point where, they were resting some goalies and different things. And I liked it just because I was like, well, no, hockey's going to be going on. Like, we're going to I still want to play as much fantasy hockey as I can. But it just kind of sucks when your team that got you to the playoffs then all of a sudden isn't that team. And if you're riding the best goalie in the league and then that team sits them for the last
Yep.
3 or 4 games because they got everything locked up. And, imagine if they sit Logan Thompson and Connor Hellebuck because they're like, nah, we're good. We're in the playoffs. We don't
Yep.
want to.
We
What?
we
Well,
clinched our division.
so it does mess with your fantasy stuff. So it's just easier to do it when teams and guys are still playing for something that they have meaningful games left. So
100%.
yeah, you're kind of getting short a week, but dude, it's long enough. I think we're how many weeks we're in our regular season? 21, something like
I
that.
think so. Yeah.
So I mean, we have plenty of fantasy hockey weeks, but yeah, I just like it so that in real
Yeah.
life, the guys and teams have like they're still playing, so it
Right.
still means something.
And it can happen with any player, but it is a good point with the goalies because if you play categories, it can really be bad. But even with points, if you've got a Hellebuck or whoever, like you're saying, depending on the team, right? Because if you have Shesterkin, like I do, the Rangers are still out of the playoffs. So they're playing Shesterkin like crazy because
Yeah,
they're in playoff mode already. But if you've got the Hellebuck's probably the best example. I don't know yet, not quite yet, but Logan Thompson, Hellebuck, whatever, they are really close to locking up their division. Probably need 5 more games, but if they lock their division as first place, then
yeah,
who cares? And really, the Jets is the Central's loaded, top heavy, right? So they really need to win their division. Okay, well, the Capitals are all but mathematically guaranteed to win the Metro. And even if you got second place in the Metro, you're going to play the Devils without Jack Hughes. That's
and Doug Hamilton.
and no Dougie Hamilton and what's his name goalie Freddie Anderson is healthy right now, but he's had health issues his whole career. Like no one's afraid of, or that's the Hurricane. Sorry, but same thing though. Mark Strom got hurt this year, and
Oh,
he's
Markstrom,
up and
yeah,
down. So it's like, dude, the Devils. No one's afraid of the Devils right now. They might have been
yeah,
afraid of the Devils in December, but
right,
they're not right now. So my point just being exactly what you said. Capitals are in the most comfy position in the East Coast to shut people down.
yeah,
Okay. Well, imagine you're like Leah and you have Devon Levi and he plays like crap all year. So now you've got a goalie you drafted that's useless. So you're scrambling all year. So you have somebody like Nedeljkovic or Casey DeSmith. And now suddenly you're going to beat me in fantasy because I've got
right,
Logan Thompson on the bench, healthy scratched, and you've got Casey DeSmith beating me on Sunday night. This
yeah,
is garbage. So
for sure.
we must have had something specific happen. I don't know, but we definitely moved it up a week at some point in our tenure.
Yeah,
All that to say, ours started this week that we're currently recording
yes,
on
this is the first
the
week of our
21st.
playoffs.
Right.
Yep.
And so I got to buy because I'm incredible. And Nick is in the muck and the mire trying to claw through. So I didn't
with
know.
with the second most points in the league, mind you.
Okay, that I'm glad you reminded me of that because I can't really complain because I'm just gonna get screwed over with the harder lineup. It's like real life with if the Rangers get into the playoffs, the Capitals are not gonna play the Red Wings or the Canadians. They're gonna play the
Yeah,
Rangers. No offense
yeah,
to my Wings, but I'd rather play the Wings than the Rangers.
yeah.
And how hilarious would it be, by the way, if the Rangers and the Capitals have a rematch?
Mm.
Last year, am I
And then
wrong?
it like flip flops.
The Rangers won the President's Trophy also. And the Capitals barely sneak in on a technicality. And then this year, there's a chance that the Capitals win the President's Trophy and the Rangers are going to barely sneak in by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah, I'm not
It's
sure
a
about the
full
President's
flip.
Trophy, but I know that the Caps got swept in the playoffs last year. So yeah,
Yes. And they got embarrassed. And so
yeah,
it would be really funny if it flipped
yeah.
And whether the Capitals embarrass them or then the Rangers were to win again as the eighth
Mm,
seed sneak in team, oh, that'd be so bad.
yeah.
But anyways, that is fantasy, right? Okay, the same thing's happening in our league
Yes.
a little bit. Nick has tons and tons and tons of total points. We play points, not categories. You have the most or the second most, right? You and me.
You have the most. I have the second
Yeah,
most.
which
Yeah.
is great for the podcast, by the way, that we
Yeah.
ended the year as the best teams. But Nick snuck into the playoffs the last week of the year.
Well, and yes, I
Because
won't
we do
say
head to head.
sneak in this. I won't say sneak in this year. Last year, I do think I snuck in. This year, going into the last week, I was the 4 seed.
Okay, but there was a tie.
But there was a log jam of like fourth through ninth place.
Yeah, yeah.
And a couple of those were playing each other, and I played you. I also scored the second most points in the league last week, lost to the guy that scored the most points in the league. So, um, yeah, so I took the L, which then, hurt my record, and there were some other teams that were playing each other. So obviously one of them was going to get a
One of them
win,
has to win.
jump me, but then uh, I I knew that okay, so some of the losers I was going to tie record wise with, but I scored 300 more points than they did over the
Right.
season. So it's like, all right, well, I'm essentially going to be in. I just don't know what my seed is going to be. But to go from fourth then to sixth and have to play you eventually, I'm playing. Who am I playing this week? I'm still playing the third place team,
Right.
Jace. Now, unfortunately for Jace, he has Jack Hughes and Brad Marchand, who are both out this week. I mean, Hughes is done. Marchand is out for 2 weeks, which is Jace's week, like the playoff weeks for us. So kind of a bummer for him.
Right.
But
Because you are beating
so
him fairly handedly. I mean, there's not a big point
projection
gap.
wise, though, I think we're only like 20 points apart.
Yes. Yeah, right now
Correct?
it says 18. Yep.
Yeah.
And so when you look at it, it's funny because, like you said, so since we do head to head, you get a win or a loss, and that's your record for the year.
Yeah.
The top six go to the playoffs, the bottom six are out. And so, because we're a 12-man league,
Yeah.
obviously. And so the total points don't matter for making the playoffs unless it's a tiebreaker. But
Yes.
it is a good projection of who really has the better team or made the best moves, who got accumulated the most fantasy points throughout the year. So since
Yeah.
Nick is sixth, but he's number 2 in all-time points, you can just get unlucky, right? For people who, if you've never
Right.
done points, if I get
Yeah.
250 in a week would be a lot. And
Yeah.
so if I get 250 and Nick gets 248, Nick takes an L. But then over here, people can be playing and they can put up 101 and the other guy did 102. And it's
Right.
like, so the records can be deceiving for how good is your team actually.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you can get a win where I get 250 and the other guy got like 65. And then next week, I get 240, but that guy got 241. And you're like,
Yeah.
and that happened to you all year. All year you had
Yeah.
and you can somehow sort it where it's like points against you. So you had like the most points, whatever.
Oh,
People
yes.
always
Points.
played their best week against you
Yeah.
every time. It was
Yeah.
so it's funny to look at, but it's frustrating to me because you got screwed a little bit where you're sixth, so you technically have the hardest road. You got to play number 3, and then you got to play number
Right.
1, and then you got to play whoever's left, which in theory should be number 2. You got to go 3, 1,
Oh,
2
yeah.
in
Yeah.
theory. So that's the hardest route there is. However, for me, first place all year, I'm looking at it going, next round, they're going to reseed the worst person, number 6,
Yep.
is going to be Nick, who's the second best person in the league, because no offense, but the guys on 4th and 5th are Bender City Pigeons and Irish Canadian Pirates. I would rather play them
Yeah.
a million times before I would play you. So, who's Ajo's Tacos too?
That's his name's Aaron. That's Jace's brother.
So Jace is gonna probably lose to you, and then Jace's brother is gonna get the easier match next week, and I have
Yeah.
to go through you, the 5-time champion.
Yeah,
So
it will be a little
I only
crazy with
I
that,
only
but
rant because it's by far my best year.
oh,
For
for
12
sure.
years we've done this, right? And it's by
Yeah.
far my best season.
Yeah.
And I have to run into you next week. And
Which
your
is
team
what
has been on
exact that's
fire.
exactly what that's exactly what happened last year. I was the
Oh,
sixth
to Eli,
seed last year in the playoffs. Eli's team was by far
by far
killing
the
me.
best.
And then I got to the playoffs and my team just started playing like monsters.
Right, you're getting
And it
5 assists
was
from some third liner.
I think I scored over 200 points every week of the playoffs. Like my team was just on fire. And so, I mean, and it's kind of weird because you can't really explain it for like fantasy purposes, but it's like, yeah, my team got hot for whatever reason. I took out Eli in the semis, and then I think I had to beat my boss weekend at Bettman's in the finals, if I'm not mistaken.
I
Um,
think so because I feel like I just saw a memory on my phone where the same goal made you beat Eli to go to the championship, and it knocked out Leah,
mm,
lost to your boss
yeah.
because of
Yeah,
the
because then
same
Eli and
goal.
Leah played each other for third place.
Yeah, so I think that it was like Leah and your boss were playing, and it was going to
Yeah.
be Eli and Leah. And then on that goal, it switched to you and your boss.
Mm. It did. I
It
loved
was
how it
something
came
like,
down to the one game
because
last
you were
year.
here. You were here in Florida. We watched it
Yep.
live.
It was Easter Sunday. It was the Vancouver Canucks versus the Anaheim Ducks.
Oh,
That was the only game of the day.
also the other drama. You got to tell that story
Yes.
too, since we're there.
Yes. Oh.
Because this is good playoff strategy also. The whole point of this podcast is supposed to be playoff strategies in fantasy. So whether you're playing points or you're playing categories, Nick was in 2 leagues, and the Easter Sunday game had massive fantasy implications last
There were
year.
massive implications. And so I was playing, I don't remember if it was to go, it wasn't the championship because I didn't make the championship, but it was a league that I was in for money. And I think I was trying to get even just to the third place game. And even if I wasn't, I play to win every week. And
Right.
so because there was only that one game left and we were playing categories, I was getting smoked in like the scoring categories, but like my goaltender categories, I was still right there.
Yep.
And so I picked up early in the morning. I'm at your house. I'm used to being on Central Time. I wake up and it's, even a little earlier, I guess, or however
You
that.
were training for your
Yeah, I
marathon,
was running for the
waking up
half
at 5
marathons.
a.m. Yeah, yeah.
So I was up early and I'm just looking and I'm like, oh, they're starting these goalies. I think both were still available. So I dropped my guys, picked up both goalies, the only two goalies for that day. That's the only game going on. I
Yeah.
picked both goalies up and because I thought, okay, if one of them gets a shutout, one of them's for sure going to get a win.
Yep.
Who knows what the save percentage will be, goals against average, all that stuff. So I mean, I needed a miracle, but it was still possible. And I was like, all right, I got the moves left. It's the playoffs. If I lose, my season's over. So I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah.
And when I made those moves, and then because it was early in the morning, and then later I started getting blown up by these guys. I mean, I'm in this league with strangers, about how, oh, that's a bush league move. You're not playing for the championship. You shouldn't be making moves like that. All these different things, and I'm just like, dude, isn't this what you want? You want people in your league that are still gonna play and try to win,
Hmm.
even if they're not in the championship game. Like, this is why are you guys getting on me just because I beat you to it? Um, and so it was kind of funny. I replied back a few comments and then I just had to like kind of I was steaming. I came down and I'm just like venting to Stu and Leah and just like, this is ridiculous. You look at this. And but
we're gonna be
I didn't want to
sinning on
get
Easter
caught up in
Sunday.
it because I'm just like, dude, this is going to drive me crazy. Um, but then the guy who, so like for the championship game or whatever it was to go to the championship game, there was one guy who me stealing the goalies, like I clearly helped one team over the other. So the guy who was probably winning the goalie categories, and the other guy would have picked up these goalies, but then I came in and blocked them because I snatched them out from underneath of him. That guy then messaged me separately and was like, "Hey man, I owe you one." And then we started chatting
Yeah,
about, what was going on, and it was like, "Yeah, dude, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm still trying to win." But they were just furious that I didn't leave the players available for the teams that were like could win money or were in the championship or whatever. I'm like, screw that, dude. I'm still trying to win my week.
yeah,
I don't care what it is. And we've kind of tweaked some things in our league so that it's um, gives teams and players some incentive to keep paying attention, to keep playing, even if they don't make the playoffs. So
yes,
we have a loser bracket, and the winner of that losers bracket, okay, it's they get to tell me where they want to draft. So is that the best solution? I don't know. I'm open to different ideas and different things, but I figure that at least cuts out a team saying, "Oh, well, screw this. I'll just tank, and then I'll be the worst team and get the first overall pick." Not necessarily.
right,
If you have, and this has happened before, but if you're the team that has a McDavid or McKinnon or something, and you miss the playoffs, okay, you can go to the playoffs, and let's say you have them, you drafted that player, and um, you want to use him as a keeper. Okay, we can still use McKinnon as a keeper for next year. But if you go to the losers bracket, bad luck, someone else on your team got hurt, something crazy, whatever, and you win the losers bracket, well, now you can say, well, I want the first overall pick, and I'm going to throw McKinnon back, draft him number one,
right,
and then keep him again.
right,
So, you know, in our league, you can only keep one player for 1 year, and then they get thrown back in the pool. But there's a little loophole right there that if something happens, because it did happen for a while, where the best, the team that had McDavid was missing the playoffs. He would get hurt, or that team wasn't paying attention, or whatever it was.
yes,
But then it's like, okay, well, normally you can just keep a player, you draft him and then keep him, draft him and then keep him. But the loophole in our league is, and I'm fine with it being there, is that you can draft him, suck, win the losers bracket, throw him back in, draft him the second year, and then keep him the third year.
right.
So, you know, I don't know.
I'm trying to go
Uh,
to the last round would have our keepers, right? So like for us, for example, is that because it's not always we debate this. So like what Nick's saying is whoever wins loser bracket, they get to tell Nick's the commissioner. So they tell Nick
yeah,
where they would like to draft. So the order is up to that person. So the number one overall pick is usually the most valuable, of course. But this next year, the number one pick would probably be Connor McDavid. So the
yeah,
year that we're currently in right now, playoffs are about to start. Connor McDavid was not available because he was somebody's keeper. So
right.
it's like, depending on the year, of course, the first year that we made the keeper list was when Connor McDavid got taken. So those 10 people, give or take, stay the same. So we sort of have a number one list and a number two list,
Yeah.
kind of. Of course, sometimes if your keeper is
It might change a little bit, but
maybe people get older or they drop off like a somebody like a Haberdew might not have been a keeper, but 3 or 4
yeah,
years ago he probably was, and now you're like, oh no way would I ever keep him? What are you crazy? He's
yeah,
probably a free agent right now. But
yeah,
anyway, so it changes a little. But so for an example, is I have Leon Draisaitl as my keeper, so I cannot keep him again.
Right.
And so the best person on my team is probably Marner, who I can keep. So just use Marner as an example. So if I've got Mitch Marner as an option to keep, and I go into the loser bracket and I win it, now I've got this loophole of saying I'm going to keep Shesterkin, so I get one of the top goalies in the league, and now anybody can get Mitch Marner. I know I'm the number one overall pick. I'm going to go grab him again. Now, in this
Yeah.
scenario, I would still take McDavid over Marner, but you can do a loophole where you can keep him.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting strategy where if you, it's probably not smart to do because you've got a Connor McDavid, but you could, in theory, get towards January and go, okay, I suck. I'm going to tank, trade for picks, and I'm going to gamble and do this on purpose. I'm going to get
Yeah.
in the loser bracket, then I'm going to win the loser bracket, then I'm not going to keep McDavid so I can have him again for 2 years. And who am I going to pick up? I'm going to pick up Leon Draisaitl. So now I've
Yeah.
got Draisaitl and McDavid for 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And so it's like I'm like you, I'm fine with that being a thing because it has to work out so perfectly. You could screw
Right.
yourself over so bad trying to gamble on
You
that.
for sure. For
And
sure.
so it's just a fun way to do it. You know, all the
Yeah.
leagues are different, of course, but it's like for us, you can only keep them for 1 year and they go back in the pool. So like
Yeah.
the people we're not allowed to keep this upcoming year are Draisaitl, Elias Pettersson. That's a good example. I don't think
Mm.
he'll be anyone's keeper this year.
Yeah.
Kale McCarr, Philip Forsberg. I don't know, maybe Matthews, Bedard, which after this year maybe not. McDavid, McKinnon, Kaprizov, Hughes, Swayman, Point. So that's most of the good people, but there's also, of course, Kucherov's missing and Panarin's missing, and there's some big boys that are going to be
Yeah.
available. So, anyways,
And first pick is not always, I mean, that just seems to be, even in football and stuff, that just seems to be everyone wants the number one pick. I
oh yeah, good point. Because we snake
I
draft.
we snake draft. So I personally I like to draft towards the bottom, and I loved picking last
Mm-hmm.
because let's say you're in whatever, yeah, just to make it easy, a 10-person league. So if you draft first, you get the number one player, but then you get what? The number
Uh,
10 and then
24.
back to 20 something. So yeah, okay, you got McDavid, but if he goes down, now your next best player is 20 something.
Yeah,
So, whereas if you draft last, okay, I get the whatever, the 10th and 11th best players.
right.
I'll take my chances with that. Plus, I like, now you do get this with the first round pick or the first pick, but I like having picks back to back.
Yes.
Especially if you're trying to double dip and it's hard to think of something right now just because um, it would never happen. But a few years ago, if you could get Stamkos and Hedman,
Right.
okay, you'd be lucky. Okay, if Stamkos fell to 10, and then you might be reaching for a Victor Hedman at 11. But if you got those, John Carlson, Alex Ovechkin, Crosby and Letang, now this year, or now it's like a McKinnon and a McCarr. Well, neither one of those guys is going to be there at 10 and 11.
Right.
But if you can double dip on a great forward and a great defenseman, and kind of go all in on those guys, I mean that can be a strategy that you use to
Yes.
um, a Roman Yossi and a Forsberg or,
Yes.
whatever it is. So, but Or maybe you think, okay, I'm drafting by position. So my first two picks, I want the best defenseman available, and then I'm going to take, the best forward available.
Yes.
So when you have picks that are back to back, you're not worried about someone throwing it off. If you pick ninth, okay, great, you're second to last, but then there's two picks in between your picks. So
Right.
now you're trying to gauge, okay, who's Stu going to pick? He's a goalie guy. Okay, he's probably going to pick a goalie. I better pick a goalie before he gets him.
Yes.
And now you're kind of playing this guessing game as to who someone else is going to pick, and it only happens if you're like 8 or 9. If you're towards the end where it's like your picks are kind of close together, or like you're a 1, a 2, or a 3, when on that snake it's coming back around. If you pick middle of the draft 5, 6, you know that it's like, all right, well, I'm picking one at a time, and there's really no chance of me
Hmm.
kind of getting a back to back kind of a pick. um,
Right.
but it can mess with you if it's like, ooh, okay, no one's. I took Stamkos, but no one's taken Hedman yet, and he's not like on the next available list. Like he might be 10 picks later, so he's a little farther down on the list. Maybe Stu won't see him, but I know that he won't get back to me the next round, so I'm gonna pick Stamkos this one, and then I'll hope that Stu doesn't take Hedman here, and then maybe you steal him from me, and now it's like, ah, crap, I didn't have a backup plan, and now you're kind of scrambling around,
Yeah.
and you make a bad. I mean, trust me, there have been plenty of times in a draft where I make a pick, and then I'm like, I instantly am like, what did I just do?
There's no, but it's
Yeah,
interesting to see how it plays out because, to your point, like for an example, it skews it a little because this person they didn't really get lucky, but it was just they have the number one overall pick this past draft. And so those people I named off weren't available. No Matthews, no McKinnon, no McDavid, no Draisaitl, and no Kaprizov. So like there was a lot of the top dogs not available. So the number one overall pick was Nikita Kucherov. Then he
yeah,
doesn't pick again until pick number 24, Victor Hedman. But then round three, he gets to pick again, right? So then
yeah.
he does get the back to back and went with Jake Ottinger. Okay, so you're going, I got Kucherov, Hedman, and Ottinger. That's pretty good. But then as the draft starts to go down, when you have these 20 people gaps, and now you're
Yeah.
thinking like, oh crap, I need a goalie, or I've got three defensemen. Oops. And it kind of becomes relevant because then he's got to go McAvoy, Bennington, and then way later, Suzuki, Mo Sider. So it's like he's doing
Mhm.
pretty good, but like you're saying, you picked last. You had no round one pick, so it's a little skewed. But you're out here getting Stamkos. Okay, well, everyone thought he was going to do good in Nashville, so that's low.
And and just as a clarifier, why I picked Stamkos so high is because Forsberg was my keeper. I
Right.
was trying to double dip.
So you're trying to double dip, right? And so that, like this guy, Bender City Pigeons, he double dipped with Kucherov and Hedman.
Yeah.
But in his mind, he's probably thinking, I want to take the top defenseman I can. I took Adam
And
Fox above Hedman. That was a mistake this year.
yeah.
And then you go and you get Jason Robertson and Ovechkin, and then Dylan Larkin. So, like, even though your team maybe doesn't have all the buzz, by the end of the season, Jason
Yeah.
Robertson had a slow start. Ovechkin
Yeah.
broke his leg. Larkin had to carry the team. It's like by the end of the year, Bender City Pigeons, who, by the way, went first overall, all of a sudden, he's loaded down with Robert Thomas and Nick Suzuki and somebody else. Who was it? Not loaded down that they're bad players, but he had like three or four centers, and
Oh,
we're only
right,
like
right.
5 rounds into the draft, and it's
Yeah.
like, now my team's like because I'm taking the
Yeah.
top available person at the time, and I got to wait 20 more picks. So
Yeah.
all that just to say that like it gives that incentive where Nick's getting yelled at in this other league. Oh, don't use your ads. Okay, then turn it off. I don't know if that's an option. But if you get knocked out, then say you're done. You're not playing anymore. Your account's blocked, and only the
You
people left are allowed to play.
you can, and here's the problem though is, there's still going to be like a fifth, sixth place game. So those teams, you can lock eliminated teams that they can't make moves. But I made the playoffs, and now okay, I lost the first round, but now I'm still playing for like fifth place
Yeah.
or sixth place. So I can, and I want those people to still have something to play for.
Right, which makes it more
So
exciting too, because the real reason I got distracted looking at our draft and
yeah,
seeing how interesting it is when you pick back to back. Because like that's what I did. I picked back to back because I traded up. So I had
yeah,
number 11, number 12, and number 13. The end of
yeah,
round one and the beginning of round two in a row. So it wasn't for me necessarily about getting the best person. It was that I had to nail those three picks. My keeper was Leon Draisaitl. So I
mm,
got Igor Shesterkin because I thought he's going to be the best goalie. Of course, it's Hellebuck, but Shesterkin's not bad. I got Mitch Marner, who at number 12 was the best available forward, in my opinion. And then
yeah,
I got Evan Bouchard on purpose to be, I tried to get the best fantasy defenseman with no Makar and no Quinn Hughes as an option. And like you picked Stamkos because of Forsberg, I picked Bouchard because I
you
had
have
Draisaitl.
Dreisaitl.
So
Yeah,
I'm thinking I got a
makes
million
sense.
power play goals, assists,
Yeah,
combo, double dip. And then I've got the best available goalie and the best available winger, or just forward. Mitch Marner, in my opinion,
yeah,
was the best because I was really heavy on it's his contract. He's going to have a career year. And I was right. He has the most points of his career and
yeah,
he's killing it. But all that to say that I wanted to bring it up because there is a strategy where you can trade away your people to get draft picks and to say, I'm going to go to next year. Well, that gamble comes down to if you are in the loser bracket, you have the most pressure to win the loser bracket because if you
yeah,
have all the picks then you can say, I want the number one pick because I have 3 first round picks, so I don't really care. I'm not going to have to wait 20 people.
yeah.
That is your boy. Your boy Eli is, it's going to be Monday when this podcast comes out. So it's going to be too late. He's crapping the bed, Nick. He's got
Yes.
all the draft picks in the world and he's losing by 30. If he wins the loser bracket, he's going to get Connor McDavid and have 3 first
Yeah.
round picks.
Yeah.
Come
Um,
on, Eli.
yeah, and I would have to go look and see who, because I do think he has someone else's first round draft pick.
I think he's got 3.
He might have three.
I don't know how to check that though.
So then if you are, let's say he has mine, I can't remember what's what, to be honest. But uh or whoever he's playing in the losers bracket. Let's say he has their first round pick and then that person wins the losers bracket. Okay, and they get to say where they pick. Now, if you win the losers bracket and you don't have a first round pick, do you then say, I mean, because now the first overall pick is useless.
Yeah.
So then do you say I want to draft last?
To get number one pick of round 2.
Because then you don't have to wait as long. So if you traded away your first round pick, but then you win the losers bracket, I argue that it's better to draft last because then I'm at least getting the 12th best. I mean, aside from all the keepers and stuff,
Yeah.
but if there's 10 teams in the league, you're going to draft 11th
Yes.
because of the snake draft. So you traded away the 10th overall pick, which wasn't really worth anything as much as a first round. You don't know that during the season
Right.
as to I traded you my first round pick, but is it going to be the number one overall pick or is it going to be the last pick of the draft? You don't know
Right.
because of who has it. But if you win the losers bracket and you don't have a first round pick, you're not going to say, "Well, I want the number one overall," because you're giving that to someone else, and then you don't get to pick until the 20 some player. because now you have to wait until your next pick, which snake draft is coming back for. So I think if you win the losers bracket and you do not have your first round pick, you pick last.
Yeah, I think that's a good strategy because then you're also going to get the back to backs in the later rounds, like you're talking about,
Yeah,
which is easier to double dip because you can't always get McCarr and McKinnon or back to back
yeah,
double dipping, but you can still get double dips that are lower quality total offense. Like I bet
yeah,
you could have gotten a Suzuki and a Caulfield, and most people
yeah,
wouldn't expect them to be all mad that they didn't go to the Four Nations, and come February and March they're on fire and they're like, in the top 10 points for the
yeah,
NHL since the break. But you can't do that on purpose unless you do it. And okay, maybe Caulfield and Suzuki aren't the best example because you could probably go, okay, in round 6 I got this guy, and then in round 7 or 10 I go, oh, they're still available. But it's easier to build your strategy, and it doesn't
yeah,
always work. You can get burnt, but I mean, having two people on the same team that are on the same power play is really a good thing. And like we've discussed that a lot on this podcast, where you can get people that are not necessarily lighting the world on fire, leading the league in goals, that are consistent power play players, or even run the power play. Like you
yeah,
might, what's OEL, right? Oliver Ekman Larson. He might not be as good as he once was, or whatever, but Morgan Riley has proven this year that he's not as good as he was, or never was. I don't know. But obviously, OEL is a power play specialist.
yeah,
So, like, if you want to plan for that with back to backs, you're probably not going to be able to go, okay, Marner Matthews. But in round 6, you might go, okay, I'm going to take Max Domi and OEL on purpose because they're both going to play power play too together or whatever.
yeah,
Or just get the merchant. OEL is just going to get assists because Matthews is going to score 70 goals. And it's
right.
like, anyways, that's a draft strategy, which is still part of the playoff strategy because in our
Yeah,
league, you can win the loser bracket and get the order you choose, but also it's like all part of it. This week is you got to start thinking about your draft now because you're
yeah,
either going to win or you're going to lose. So
yeah,
the other thing that we wanted to touch on, we talked before the podcast started. I don't know if you wanted to drive the bus, is like the advantage of looking out the schedule forecast when you need to use your ads instead of going, normally you go, who is the best available person, or maybe there's a couple people that are similar, but this team's playing the Sharks and this team's playing the Panthers, so I'm going to pick up the guy that's playing the bad team. Versus now in the
yeah.
playoffs, it's kind of a numbers game.
Yes. And so this week is a very strange week anyway, because if you look at the games, there were a ton of games last night,
Yeah, like a bunch, 12 or something.
why there were so many on the first day of March Madness, I'm not sure. But then today,
The NHL's marketing should all be fired. But anyways,
today there was one game. That's it. And now there's a bunch of games Saturday. So that hurts teams because now instead of, I mean, I kind of like it as well because instead of just playing the guys that have games that day, well, now I have to look and I have to decide,
mhm,
okay, who do I think is gonna, do I think Stamkos is breaking out of his slump, or do I think Matty Nyes is gonna be hot still? Like, which one am I gonna play? So now I have to determine, and I'm making the decisions. I'm calling the shots on what guys I think are going to have a better game instead of just, oh, well, let me fill my lineup with these guys. Perfect. The next day, let me just fill my lineup with the other guys that didn't play. And I don't really have to think about who I think is going to be better.
right.
You're just plugging and playing. But this week is definitely different because there was a ton of games yesterday. There was only one today, ton of games tomorrow. So
Yeah.
now I got to figure out, okay, who do I want to start? And so that can make it tricky. Uh, I left a guy on a bench yesterday that got a hat trick. So,
Who was it?
Dorofeyev
Dorothea.
for
Yeah, yeah,
Vegas.
yeah.
Yeah. And so that one kind of hurt. I'm winning by enough that I'm like, okay, hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me. But I would feel a lot better if I had those like 14 and a half points that he got me in fantasy.
Oh my goodness.
Um, so, but everyone's dealing with that, right? So
Yeah,
it's not just me that is dealing with trying to pick the right players. Everyone's kind of has to they're in this, we're all in the same situation. But I made some moves the other day that I wasn't I'm happy with the players that I got, but here was the problem. So I dropped Malkin and I picked up Brian Rust. Okay, great, but it didn't get me any more games.
yeah.
So, but the problem was there was nobody on my team. Like I would have loved it if I could have dropped someone else, picked up Brian Rust for tonight because tonight was Pittsburgh Columbus. So now I have Malkin and Rust, and then after tonight's game, well, now I'll drop Malkin
Hmm.
because I wanted to drop him, but I just dropped him for a guy that was on the same team that had it was the same number of games. So
Right,
now instead of giving myself an advantage game wise, I'm now betting that Rust is going to do better than Malkin
right.
in that game, and I don't like playing that game if I can help it. I'd rather play the numbers game, which I kind of hate during the regular season because it's like, yeah, well, okay, you used your 5 ads and outscored me. I didn't use a single ad and I still put up all these points, but my team's so good that I don't want to drop these players because
Right.
then someone else is going to snatch them up. But we're in the playoffs now, but it's early enough in the playoffs that I don't want to be dropping guys that I might need a week,
Right.
next week to play. So I'm walking this tightrope of I need more games, but I don't want to drop these guys because if I do drop them and win, okay, well, now I've just picked up. That's the thing. You got to think kind of long term too. Long term is in just the next few weeks. Do I think Brian Rust is going to be better or I mean be good enough in the next couple of weeks? Well, when I look at him and I see that he's playing with Crosby and on the first power play or whatever, it's like, okay, yeah, I'll take my chances with that.
Yeah.
Um, because I dropped Morgan Riley, I think, for the Leafs. So I'm like, all right, well, is he? Let me look. I look. Uh, the Leafs do not have a single defenseman on power play one.
Really. Five
I
forward.
think I think Johnny Tavares is the center. You got Nylander and Nyes on the wings, and then it's Matthews and Marner on
Wow.
point. So why am I holding on to Morgan Riley? He doesn't play power play one. Let me get rid of him. Let
Drop
me
him.
get a guy that is gonna play power play with Crosby, and I'm gonna ride that. I like my odds with that for the next couple of weeks over this defenseman that is isn't even playing on the thing. So there's a lot of the numbers games, and you do have to look at the schedule because also, okay, so you might pick up a player, let's say for the Leafs, or whatever. I was actually looking at someone, but okay, they might have the same, oh, this guy's got more games, but then I need to go look at my lineup for, let's say I'm looking to pick up a guy on Thursday and I see, oh yeah, he's got a game Friday and Sunday. Okay, great. He might have a game Friday and Sunday. So I'm dropping a guy that only has one game on Saturday and I'm picking up a guy that has 2 games. So it might sound good, but those 2 games might be on jam-packed full days that I wouldn't play them.
Hmm.
So then I'm not doing myself any favors either. I'm picking him up just so he can be on my bench. But now sometimes you want to do that. You want to play, and this is all just. I mean, there's no exact science to it, but like I kind of picked up a Brian Rust so that he couldn't play against me as well. So,
Yes.
and I'm going to
You
play
got to
him.
block a little bit when it, especially
Yeah,
playoffs. More every week you block
right.
sometimes, but really,
Yeah,
like you said, some of my players are too good. I'm not going to drop them just to.
right.
Even if I
Now,
lose, I'm going to say, they're too good. I want to keep them for the year. You're in playoff
championship
mode.
week, championship game, that week, yeah. But I would say you have to be careful when you drop them too. Look at your league's waiver time. If I drop a guy on Friday, I know that he's not going to clear waivers. I could drop whoever because we don't have a no cut thing. If I know I'm not keeping him and it doesn't matter because he's getting thrown back at the end anyway,
Yeah,
okay, I'll drop him on Friday because I know that there's not enough time for you to pick him up, and then I can use my ads if he's not got a game or something like that. But so it's definitely something to be mindful of and just to look at the schedule. You really want to look at the schedule this time of year, and I hate that I'm telling Stu how to beat me next week already, but uh, you want to look at the real schedule and how many games that team has, but then you need to look at your own fantasy team and see, okay, do I even have a roster spot for him? Like I might, like I said earlier, you might be picking him up because he has more games this week. But if you wouldn't play him because you already have a full lineup those days, then don't even bother picking him up
right.
unless you're trying to block someone else from picking him up. Um, but so that's it, it can get a little tricky, but you can really help yourself out by just paying attention to some of the games and trying to get yourself more, because I almost thought about, and especially like today, I was like, okay, I wanted Brian Rust, and I think I picked up Ekholm for the Oilers, and I didn't really do myself any favors schedule wise. The players I dropped for him, I liked the moves that I made as far as players dropping and adding. But then I was like, man, maybe I wait until, like I said, today I drop someone else, I add Rust, and now I have Rust and Malkin
Yep.
for this game tonight, and then tomorrow I drop Malkin. But sometimes you can't wait. Sometimes I don't want to be late to the game. I need let me just make this move now because I'll kick myself later if I don't get Brian Rust. And sometimes we have guys in our league, and I don't care about this strategy either. They're just picking up and playing goalies every time. Okay, well, there's only one game tonight, so but if you're trying to like get points every day, okay, maybe you are trying to pick up, okay, I got someone that I can drop. I'll just pick up whatever goalie's going to start, for Columbus tonight or whatever, and then I'll drop him and pick someone
Yep.
else up on Saturday or whatever. But then it's like, okay, well, then just be careful who you're dropping for that one spot start goalie that you're trying to get.
Yep.
Like, don't give up too much for that spot,
Mhm.
which I was tempted to do at first, and I probably do it if my matchup is a little closer. But I was in a spot that I'm like, okay, I'll probably still be a little nervous because 20 points isn't a lot. But as far as what my projection is, I think I'm winning by more than 20, but it's like, oof, man, I still am not 100% sure. So I was like, I need points every day. I know I'm winning by 30, but give
Yep.
me 8 more from the goalie on the day that there was only one game. Let's just go.
Yep.
But but I don't want to give up someone that I'm going to want back next week just to give me a little bit. So I'm kind of gambling a little bit there with
Yeah.
that. Um, is is it going to come back to bite me? I don't know. But that definitely playoff time, the schedule starts to matter a whole lot more. Team schedules and fantasy teams schedules.
Right.
You, can you plug that guy in and actually play him, or are you picking up someone that you're not going to be able to play because everyone else has a game and you don't have a spot for them? So then don't even bother trying to add them. It's just, so I feel like I'm rehashing everything here, but it can be a little tricky, but just know that the schedule starts to come into play and to matter a lot more during the fantasy playoffs than it did during the regular season.
Right. And you have a few like good examples of that on your team where because it's playoffs and it's do or die, there are good people that you don't want to drop for next week. But you get to a point where that razor edge you talked about, you start to look at Matthew Nyes, Dorofeyev,
Yeah.
Velarde, Ekholm, Uyghur, maybe even Stamkos, where you're going Kevin Lankinen, the goalie. All these people are good, but if you have to drop people to end, there you go. Now, of course, it's kind of obvious. People probably know this, but once it's the championship weekend, then it's like, okay, on Monday,
Bets are
you're not going
off.
to drop Braden Point to get more games.
Yeah.
That's insane. But once it's Friday, Saturday, do you take a gamble where you go, they're going to go on waivers? I'm in the championship. They come off waivers on Monday. The season's over.
Yes.
So your keeper, you want to make sure, because in our league, it is the
Yeah.
rules. In case anyone listening is part of our podcast, part of our league.
Yeah.
If I
Keeper
have,
has to be on your team.
they have to be on your team. So which is also a trade strategy, not to get off topic, but I can
Yeah.
trade like I got Matthews this year in a trade, right? But he's somebody else's keeper, so he's not allowed to be kept this year. So I have
Yeah.
Matthews and Draisaitl, which is why my team's so stacked. Neither one can be kept. So I
Yeah.
could have on the trade deadline said, I'm going to trade away Matthews for a different superstar that is allowed to be kept because maybe Hellebuck or somebody can be kept. So I'm going to throw away Matthews to get a keeper. Long story short is now you're in the championship weekend in 2 weeks. Bets are off. Drop whoever. Keep your keeper, but I'm not allowed to keep Leon Draisaitl. So if it's Friday and he's a little bit banged up in real life, right? So that could screw over my fantasy. Well,
Yeah.
I'm not going to drop him next week unless he's announced he's out until playoffs. That's obvious.
Right.
But if it's like he's day to day, I can't drop Leon Draisaitl. I need him if I beat Nick and I go to the championship. I need him. But if you're in the championship and you go McDavid in real life, Matthew Tkachuk in real life, who else did I just say? I have Draisaitl in real life.
Yeah.
Miro Heiskanen is out. They announced he's out, right? Quinn Hughes
Mhm.
is out. Jack Hughes is out. Like, you have to drop those people if they're not going to
Yeah.
play. So even a
If they're
Leon
not going to play,
Draisaitl,
that's key.
like a Leon Draisaitl is probably not on Monday of the championship week, and he's day to day. I think you got to keep him. But once
Yes.
it's Friday, even though he's one of the best players in the world, if you are not sure he's going to play on Sunday, you probably want to drop him. And it sounds crazy to drop Leon Draisaitl and go pick up Kuzmankov, for example,
Yeah.
or Logan Cooley. But it's like,
Yeah.
dude, if they play and you don't,
You're getting points.
and even if you're
Yeah.
winning, of course, I don't have as much experience as Nick. Once it's Friday or the final,
You want to use those ads. That championship week, use all your ads, pack the points as much as you can. And you can also look and see, back to the Draisaitl thing. Yes, if he's got a game Sunday, it's obvious, but don't drop him if he's still going to play.
Yeah.
But there have been times where, okay, maybe the Oilers have, maybe they're ending the season, a California road trip. They're going to play San Jose, Anaheim, and the Kings. And if it says on Tuesday, Draisaitl is not on that road trip, okay, I'm cutting bait.
Yep.
Give me someone else.
Yep.
Give me someone else that's going to play. And usually by then, there's not a ton of guys out there, but you're going to want to target guys that are on the power play, playing on the top two lines, because there won't be superstars left to pick up at that point. So then you need to look and see who is playing with those superstars.
Yes.
Those are the guys you want to go get.
Exactly.
Center wingers, multiple positions.
Center wing.
That's who you want to get so that you can plug in them, play in them, get those more games. That's what you're after in the playoffs.
And there's a few good examples just in our league that even if they're not playing well, like they've had a bad year, Jeff Skinner is a great example. Probably the biggest bust in fantasy this year. I think pretty much everyone thought he would go from 30 goals to 50 goals in the
Mm-hmm.
Oilers program, and he's got 10 or whatever, right? He's terrible this year. Okay, well, last game he had 2 goals. So those are the type of caliber players that do exist where it's probably worth a gamble. But two things: who plays the most games and what are the options? They're on the power
Yeah.
play. He's a center winger, or I'm just going to plug in a goalie. There's strategies, but you got to look where you're going to cut bait. You're going to get rid of the superstar, the best player, because it's do or die. Our league center wingers, there's Zegras, Holloway, Stankoven,
Mm.
Morgan Geeky. So there's like some solid, decent people that are still available where earlier the better, right? Like you said a good example. Let's say they're on a road trip and the player is, hey, they're dinged up, they're not going on the road trip. Depending on your fantasy schedule, drop them.
Yeah.
And if they are going to come back home and play on Sunday, you kind of have a gamble. Do you keep Draisaitl because he's one of the best players in the world and he's going to play Sunday? Or do you start doing the math and going,
Yeah.
I could cut Draisaitl and pick up Geeky, and Geeky's going to play 3 games where Draisaitl's going to play either 1 or 0.
Yeah.
I need those numbers. And then, of course, once it's Friday, you play defense where everyone you drop, your opponent cannot pick up. And if you haven't used your ads yet, you don't really want to be in a position, could still win, where you're coming into Sunday and you're trying to use all 5 ads Sunday morning.
Yeah, that's a bad spot to be in.
Because especially if your opponent has already used their ads, they most likely tried their best to plan out, I added somebody who's going to play on Friday and Sunday. So they've
Yeah.
already used an ad that will benefit Sunday, but it also already benefited them on Friday. So they
Yeah.
got a game on you. So you can get lucky and just add 5 people for a team, like you were saying that example on Easter Sunday. There's only 1 game. So both
Yeah.
of you are out there picking up 10 people for these 2 teams, and now
I,
you're going to
I
win fantasy off of a plus minus from a 7th defenseman.
Right. I had to pick up, I think in our league, I think I had the Vancouver's goalie going, and then I had to pick up like a third line guy who played maybe power play 2 or something.
Yep.
And that's why I picked him up, because it was like, oh, he's third line, but also he gets power play time. So
And I
I don't know.
think he got a point on the power play and is why you
I
won.
think he did. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Because it was close. It came down to the wire. Eli and I, that game, or that year, that game came down to who went and played for the championship trophy last year.
yes,
And I edged out Eli on Easter Sunday, the last game, which was awesome because, I mean, I don't know that all of us are sitting there watching the Ducks and Canucks game on
right,
the edge of our seats
that had
if it's not
no
for fantasy.
playoff implications for the Ducks at least. And I don't
Yeah.
remember the Canucks. It might have mattered a little bit, but they at the time, not very many people knew who he was because Dimko got hurt. So Arthur Shilas comes in out of nowhere and plays really good in the playoffs, and they almost beat Edmonton. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's because who was the other person? Was it DeSmith? Who was their backup last year? They had their first and second string goalie go down. So everyone remembers Shilas coming in the playoffs and playing well, but the last week of the regular season, he did as well, and no one knows who the heck he was. He was sort of
Right.
famous because Latvia got a bronze medal, and it was the
Mm.
first time they medaled, and it was all over the news. They had a big parade, and I think Shilas was Latvia's goalie when that happened. But it's like you didn't think your fantasy season was going to come down to Arthur Shilas and Sunday night. And I feel like it made real life watching hockey more fun because of the excitement of fantasy. And
It was so much
something,
fun.
when that goal went in, I feel like there was a detail where it was like the person who scored it was like you beat Eli, but Leah got knocked out on that goal, and it was like something weird where she had a player on the ice where if her player would have scored the goal, then she would have gone to the final. And
Yeah.
instead,
It
the
it
other
was
person
really
scored the
weird
goal.
because there were actually a lot of players in that game that we had.
And it was one of those desperation ads because it was you and Eli were like tied, and I feel like Leah and your boss were like tied. So there was four
Yeah.
teams all of a sudden in like desperate mode. So,
Right.
anyways, that makes it fun. That's why people play fantasy. It's fun.
Yeah.
But like when you play our points system, I feel like it is more variables because in categories, there's a lot of times where you're coming into Thursday night and it's like, well, I won. You know,
Yeah.
barring a miracle, you know that you are the winner, and it's like, it's boring and it sucks. So get on our point system, but also just think of these strategies. Numbers, who plays the most games, can be the deciding factor
Yeah.
in the playoffs, but it's not always. And you can get the cart before the horse a little bit. Like you said, I'm going to add Brian Rust. And it's like, okay, that's good. He got a bunch of points. Was it today? He got a golden assist, 11 points. But it's like,
Oh, did it? I don't know. I didn't look at the
yeah, they
thing
beat
to.
Columbus 6-3. He got you 11 fantasy points, golden assist.
Nice.
But
What did Malkin do?
let's look up Malkin because if you had both of them, you would think it would help you, of course, with Malkin this year. Not a
But see,
guarantee.
if I don't add Rust, someone's gonna beat me to him tomorrow.
And he got 11 points, so it's like that is a hugely valuable move. Malkin today, he got a goal and got 6.5. So obviously, if you had both, okay, you don't have a time
Yeah.
machine. Trust me, if
Right.
Carolina had a time machine, they would still have Nietzsche on their team. But
Yeah.
those 6.5 points could make or break fantasy. You don't really want to beat yourself up over those because Russ got you more points.
Yeah.
It's when you have to
It
make
worked
a
out.
decision of my roster's totally full. Who do I put in?
Yeah.
And then you make the wrong decision. Those are what kill you. But what's preventable is plan ahead, think ahead, use your ads and drops are way, way, way more important now that it's playoffs. Because if you pick
Yes.
up a better player who plays one game and I pick up a worse player who plays 3 games, I will probably beat you
Yeah.
just by chance. And you know, sometimes you can get lucky where it's like an injury that's not very serious, like a Freddie Anderson or a Stu Skinner or something. It's like, dude, if they go down, they're gonna like Colorado. It happened to me, and I like you were saying, you can screw yourself. Sometimes you add people. And who did you drop to get this goalie? Now I have both Colorado goalies. That happened to me last week. Okay,
Mm.
well that's stupid. Why do you have both? Well, they had a back to back, so they played their backup, and then the starter went day to day. He was sick with the flu or something.
Yeah.
Anyways, the backup ended up playing 2 games. So I was like,
Mm.
right. Blackwood, right? Or
Yes.
Mackenzie Blackwood and the other one. Anyways, so just look at the real life schedule, try to get the most games, and then try to play defense, especially in
Yes.
the final. And you can tell sometimes those twofers. If Nick has Philip Forsberg, I am going to block a Nashville pickup or whatever, right? And so
Yeah.
it's like you can just think that way. Sometimes you can be winning by 50, still use your ads to block
For
them.
sure.
And
Yeah.
you could think ahead, right? Right now, while we're on this call, I could add 1 or 2 people. I'm not probably going to use all 5 to go. I don't want Nick to have this guy next week. I better get him.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's pretty much it. Did you want to do any studs and scrubs suggestions for all these ads we're talking about?
I don't. I don't have anything.
Okay, I
Um,
have very limited. Of course, I'm back out of it now, so I'm going to run through just a quick little from my list I had picked up.
Okay.
Suggestions that are available in our league. So I'm going to go scrub Kuzmenko. Kuzmenko gets traded to the Kings, so he's on my watch list because I'm trying to find people that got traded in real life. Did their stats go up or down? Okay, he's had no points, real life points, goals and assists, 0 through 10 games, and almost nothing on fantasy. Not worth a pickup. Coming into the playoffs, I would skip him. Okay. I'm going to go probably scrub Josh Norris. Because Josh Norris is a good player, but he's a center only. He gets traded to
Yeah.
Buffalo, which to me means less points probably than when he was in Ottawa.
Yeah.
And he's injury prone. Guess what happens? He goes to the Sabres, he gets hurt.
Mm.
So now he's out. He's played 3 games. He hasn't played. He's still listed as day to day. I would not take the risk on him. You do not want to waste an ad during the playoffs and then have somebody not play. Then scrub Bjorkstrand. Bjorkstrand went to the Tampa Bay Lightning. You would assume his points would go up, even if maybe his minutes might go down. I'm not quite sure on that. But he's a solid player. He's getting plugged in the third and fourth line. The Lightning are on fire. They're winning tons of games. He's got nothing. No goals, no points, negative plus minus, a couple shots on goal, no block shots, no power play goals, no shorthand goals, not even penalty minutes. In our league, penalty minutes hurts you. In a lot of leagues, they help you. He's invisible. Don't add him. Studs. Stankoven, because he's a center winger, he's doing okay. He's had a goal and assist in his last 5. One other guy I had on here. Oops. It was Cousins. Let me find him. Cousins, he's doing okay. If you play in a league with hits, he's your number 1 pickup.
Oh, yeah.
Center only, which is a downside, but he had a goal, he had an assist, he's got lots of shots on goals, he's got tons of hits. Plus minus is a little low, but Ottawa's winning a lot. He's a stud. Last stud for me, Logan Cooley. Logan Cooley I tried to pick up while we were talking on this podcast, but I had William Karlsson, Wild Bill, on my IR. He's healthy. I had to put him in there. Logan Cooley is on a 3-game point streak. He's playing solid. Fantasy points are just kind of middle, but Utah's playing a lot. They're playing the 22nd, the 24th, the 27th. They got to play Tampa twice. They played the Red Wings. Sorry, Red Wings, but you suck.
Yeah.
And so just look at who plays the most games and who do they play against. I want to add anyone from the Red Wings. Sorry.
Yeah.
But they got a horribly hard schedule, and they can't score.
Right.
The only people on the team that can score are already taken because it's Larkin and DeBrincat and Kane. They're not getting depth scoring. They're not going to get depth scoring. But St. Louis, Utah, Montreal, Ottawa, they're getting depth scoring the whole lineup. Search for those guys. Okay, so my studs and scrubs, that's all I had. Goalies are always a different strategy. Pick up if they got a starting check mark and they're a backup, get them before your opponent can. It's a kind of a lazy way to get points, but it usually works out okay.
Yeah.
So
awesome, good stuff.
All right, so pretty short podcast for us, considering we did okay trying to wrap it up. I thought it might be shorter, but then I forgot we should probably talk about Ovechkin and about the basketball. I know we didn't talk about the real life wild card race, but there's not much point because we're recording on the 22nd 21st. It's midnight in Florida. By the time it comes out on Monday, it could be totally different teams in the race. Everyone knows that. So our Red Wings are out of it right now, but they are mathematically very much in the race still. So let's go Red Wings. And I don't think I had anything else, man. Let's all right. You know what? If the Red Wings don't make it, I'll end on this. At this point, I almost want the Red Wings to get last and get a better draft pick because I would rather see them in the playoffs, but it's this close. Give me Ottawa. Give me Montreal. I want both Canadians in. Let's do it because I want to see Ottawa and Toronto upset.
Yeah.
I want to see the Senators beat the Leafs just because it's funny.
Yeah, that would be good.
All right, bro.
All right. Make him make the first move, Conway.
Keep your stick on the ice, bud. Thanks.
Love it.